What do you get when you combine simplified practice marketing, proven ROI strategy, and Van skate shoes? You get Mark Thackeray, of course. So lace up, grab your green smoothie, and get ready, because this is Dental Marketing Secrets. And this is Mark.
All right, you guys, welcome back to another episode of the Dental Marketing Secrets podcast, where our whole goal is to provide actionable tips and tricks that you can take and immediately apply to grow your practice so that you can serve more patients and ultimately leave a greater impact, because that is the name of the game, my friends. My name is Mark Thackeray, and as always, I'm excited to be here with you today, wherever you are and however you may be listening. Thanks for tuning in. I've got Lorie Streeter joining me. She's been on the podcast before, and she is just an amazing resource. She's been in the industry for a number of years, has so much experience, and so I'm so excited. She is the vice president of ADOM, the American Association of Dental Office Management. Lorie, thank you so much for taking the time and joining us today.
Absolutely.
So yeah, we're going to dive in a little bit today on as the holidays are approaching. You know, what can we do as a practice, especially given the current situation? You know, it's different than in years past, where, you know, sometimes we had, you know, a Santa come in and do photos, and for example, in the practice, and have encouraging patients to come in. That's a little different now with what we're seeing with the pandemic and people's response to that pandemic. So we're going to be brainstorming a couple of different ideas on what you can do to gear up for the holidays and still market your practice in effectively, right? So
yeah, for sure.
So why don't you, based on your observations too, Lorie? I know you've been in, and for those who don't know Lorie, you know, she's been an office manager. Remind me how many years you were as an office manager?
12 years in practice.
So 12 years as an office manager. She's been on kind of in a wide variety of roles. And so she's got a great comprehensive view of marketing in general for a dental practice. And so, you know, why don't we look at some of those things? We've kind of brainstormed a number of different ideas, but why don't we start with kind of your observations on the current situation, just so we can kind of frame this in the right way.
Absolutely. So a couple things we've been seeing, as you said, I'm the vice president of the American Association of Dental Office Management. Most people know it as ADOM. So it's really great to be able to see all of the cool things that office managers are doing across the country, as well as their teams. So with the current situation, I can tell you this, and we've kind of talked about this a little bit last time, everybody is so busy right. Making sure that all their T's are crossed and I's are dotted. And you know, one of the big challenges with that is you lose the ability to have the time to really start thinking about your practice and how you want to position it from a marketing perspective. So right. The fact that I think the biggest thing we have to talk about today is the connection with our patients and with our communities, and how to be able to think outside the box in order to do that and still have a great, you know, fall / I don't know about you, but fall's kind of gone and I have snow already. So falling into Christmas and the whole holiday season, what does that look like as we move into, you know, the time of giving and sharing, and really wanting our patients to know that there's no better time to go to the dentist than right now. So I think the biggest thing for me that came up when I was thinking about our interview today was just connection.
Yeah. And that really should be forefront in our minds all the time, but especially now. I loved how you put that, Lorie, just especially now, because we're not, you know, we're all isolated. I mean, I think that's kind of the word that keeps cropping up, is we feel removed. We feel not as connected as we normally are with people, you know, as we're trying to navigate this whole pandemic. We're trying to be responsible. We're trying to take into consideration other people's feelings and you know, and their whole approach to everything. It can leave us feeling a little disconnected, you know. I mean, it's just not the same as it used to be. And so I think your point is so important to remember, is what can we do? And that should really be the central question you're asking yourself right now as you're preparing for the holidays, preparing to market your practice. How can I build in this sense of connection with my patients? Because
Yep.
That's really the crux of good marketing, is that ability to connect, really reach across the aisle and pull them in and let them know that you're concerned about them, right?
Yep. Yep, absolutely. And I think if you look at, obviously this is a podcast, so we don't have a lot of visual here, but let me give you one for half a second. If you take connection on one side and isolation on the other, what you want to do with your marketing is meet in the middle. So you want people to move from isolation towards you, and you want to move from your connected practice closer to that person who feels isolated, possibly your patient. So, one of the things we're really going to have to take a look at overall in dentistry is the people, I should say, are the people that are, not keeping their appointments. Are they afraid? What does that look like? Are we making that reach out, that connection? But I think the things that you and I listed are some actually super fun things that you can do throughout the holidays. And I think bridging that gap between isolation and connection is where kind of that sweet spot is going to be. So for me, you mentioned my diverse background. I owned a marketing company for 10 years, and there were things we did almost every holiday season that were, really good, especially brand awareness and making sure that our dental practice was in the, forefront of people's hearts and minds. That we actually were doing things that showed the compassionate and caring side of us during the holidays,
right.
And also work to, remind people, come on, move along, use your benefits. You've got just a very short window here to get people to come in. And, some practices are really, really full, and others are going, where are all my patients right now? So it depends on what bucket you fall in. You're either going to be a person who's really promoting their brand and their community awareness, or you're going to be a person who wants to get patients in the door, pardon my language, but butts and chairs, because this is the time that they need to use up their benefits. So I think we have two different kinds of marketing scenarios here. And depending on which bucket you fall in, I would always grab a little bit of that community piece, no matter what your ultimate goal is. So I don't know where you want to start, Mark, but we've got lots of things on our list. And I'm super excited to dive in here. So just tell me. I mean, I love this stuff. So you tell me where you want to go first.
Oh, you're just like me. I just geek out on this stuff all the time, and I can go a million miles an hour. So let's start with there. I think let's start with the using benefits. I think that's a great one that is kind of low hanging fruit for a lot of people, because these are benefits, right, that a lot of patients have, they've paid for already, and they're set to expire, and so I think there's that educational piece involved that, and most people, well, it just depends, there's always a percentage of the patient base that doesn't really fully grasp that that's going to happen, I mean, and so I think but that comes back to the connection piece, right? It's showcasing or demonstrating that the reason I'm reaching out about this is because I just want to make sure that you understand your options, and if I know you have some outstanding treatment, I would love to take care of this for you. So, because you can apply your benefits towards this, it's going to cost you less out of pocket. And so I think just, you got to remember you're trying to communicate that connection piece with what you're doing. But let's talk about some of those ways. What have you done in the past, Lorie, for use it or lose it campaigns, let's say?
Well, I think the really cool thing now is that there's so much automation, right? So we have reminder services, and there's so many, and I don't want to mention just one in particular, but it might be just as simple, and I'm just coming from an office manager perspective, to say, okay, I've loaded that into my system. I'm going to email that out on X day to remind everybody about their benefits. I mean, we have wonderful campaigns built electronically. And I think the challenge with that is that people don't look at the three-legged stool and follow that up with other things. So if you are setting out that reminder, that's great. But I would then also have your goldmine list or your phone call list ready for that personal connection. But take one more step further, I would go into your social media platform, and I would basically, the image that I wrote down was like a person lifting up their garbage can and tossing it into a dumpster, and the benefits were falling out, money falling out. Because that's literally what happens. I think a lot of people use busy as an excuse. They use fear as an excuse. And your team has to be ready to combat that. I mean, you should have a really good person on the phone, and I hate this word, but I'm going to say it anyway, who has kind of a sales type flavor, a sales personality that's able to translate, this is treatment that is best for your health, and why not let someone else help pay for it?
Right.
So I think
that.
really having the open, honest conversation right now, and making sure that you're covered, whether it be reminder service, personal phone call and check-in, which is good for your patients anyway, and then also following that up on social. So you're knocking that message on all the doors. So that's what I think. How about you? What do you think?
Yeah, no, I love that. You really have to approach it. It's got to be a multi-step approach. You have to, because some people won't read emails. We know the email open rates aren't 100% by any means. They're not even close to that. And so there's going to be a good percentage, the majority, that won't even read that email. So yes, there needs to be some follow-up via social media for sure. Definitely phone calls. And like you said, just to touch on your point, and I think some people have a hard time with, I don't want to be salesy, I don't want to be pushy, but really it comes back to, I keep coming back to what you said, but it's coming back to that point of connection. If you truly care about your patients, and I just look at it as giving them the opportunity to make the best decision possible. You're not really trying to strong arm them into, hey, you've got to come in and do this, but it's just letting them know, hey, this is available to you. We've discussed this particular treatment that you need. And I loved how you phrased that. I actually wrote it down and circled it. Why not have someone else pay for it? I just love that framing. And so, but yes, it does need to be, you need to touch them multiple ways. You need to remind them in different ways. And yeah, some people will do a mailer, and I'll share something that was pretty kind of surprising to me a little bit. So we did a test with a group client that I had that had multiple locations, just a DSO. And so we wanted to test, okay, is it better digitally? Is it better, direct mail? Is it better a combination? And then we had a control group that we didn't send anything to, just a smaller control group. And it was very surprising to me. So one received just the postcard, one received the postcard plus digital advertising, and then one was our control group. And the one that won out, you'll be surprised by this. Maybe, I don't know, maybe you won't, but just the postcard was the most effective of all of them, which I thought was crazy, because you're getting the postcard with the other group too, but also some digital messages. So I thought that was interesting, but you just kind of have to test and work it with your patients. But the point is, you need to be communicating in different ways, and I think you could include, if it were me, I would include some in-office signage, just an 8.5 by 11 sheet flyer that's in one of those acrylic stands. You can post those in the different operatories at the front desk, just to remind people, because we are so busy today. We need those reminders. As much as we like to think, oh, I know this and I will remember this, most of the time we do not, even if we intend to do something about it. So having those subtle reminders, and then having those more direct reminders as well, an email, a phone call, a text, those are tremendous options.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't know about you, but I have a college age student at home who's distance learning. And yes. I mean, this is going on across the country. So, the challenge that some parents have to get their kids in, I mean, this is also a great time to hone your message. So, yes. Of course, we're going into the holiday season, but you also have a lot of young people who need to have ancillary work done that are home because of their experience with school. So, yes. I mean, I would also, as a team, look at your practice overall and look at your unused treatment list or uncompleted treatment list, and things that are heavy demographic points. So we're going to focus on, is Sally or Sam home from college? This is a great time to get them all in. And, you said something that I also wrote down and circled. You were talking about doing the best thing for the patient. So it's really not sales.
Right.
actually like going to the doctor and the doctor telling you, I'm showing you your lab work. You have, let's say, diabetes.
Right.
And basically your doctor's saying, these are the 3 medications we would prescribe for you. What this one has this side of, they're explaining everything. And you looking at it and going, that would be like you saying that doctor's being salesy because he's trying to do something for your health.
Right.
So using that analogy, I think it's really important that we understand that we're not selling treatment. That would be like going to a store and buying socks. This isn't that. This is not only the best thing for your patient, but it's the best thing for your practice, because the energy of, I did a presentation many years ago called The Energy of Marketing, which probably sounds kind of woo-woo, but at the end of the day, the energy in your practice should resonate who you are, and who you are should be completely patient and dedicated. Your team, your doctors, everyone in your practice, we all have lives to lead, and we would want to be marketed in such a way that our health was put first. So I think as long as you step forward in that, with that mannerism, any one of these things we throw at you is a good thing. But how you approach it on the back end, which is, educating your own internal team that, look, we've got this special going. We're going to do an end of the year special. And here's why we're doing it, because we have too many people that are missing treatment because of X, Y, Z. So I think the energy of that is super important too.
Yes. I love that. And that's that is so important to remember. And the way I kind of look at it too is just, hey, our patients are the hero of our story. That we try and make the patients the hero of our story, and that's why we're doing what we're doing. And to use your analogy of going to a physician, for example, they know the consequences, and they know the likely outcome of what's going to happen if you avoid certain treatment. And that's like, we have that same opportunity. We have that same knowledge, same expertise. We recognize those signs and what they are going to likely lead to. And it's really our moral obligation to share those with them. They're coming to us because they trust us. They know that we have all the experience. And so it really is incumbent upon us to share that, and you don't want to be forceful. Yeah. And that's, I guess that's the fine line, but just helping them understand these are your options. I'm not going to push you on the way. I would recommend this because I've seen this happen, but it's just, it's a great way to look at it.
Here's the sad truth to this, Mark. We know that some people need to be incentivized.
That's true. Yes, absolutely.
So, it's kind of like I get the coupon Valpak coupon thing, and that's kind of dates. The coupons used to come in and you're like, well, I didn't really need to go to that store, but I've got this coupon now. So, I know that one of the things we wanted to talk about too was, the word incentive is something, but, really wrapping up that holiday flavor in marketing, and, how can we make this fun for people too? I've had years and years now, when I owned my own marketing company, of experiencing how people receive. And remember, you have to perceive to receive. So people have to understand that it's a gift. They have to understand the usefulness of it, and they have to understand the intent in which you gave it. So I don't know if you want to go that direction, but I also think there is that patient out there that will get their treatment done, but they need to be incentivized.
Yeah. No, I think you're absolutely right. It's just that one maybe the last carrot, that gets them to take action. They already logically, you can make the case logically and rationally that, hey, your benefits are going to expire. This makes sense. But yeah, it could just be that one last thing that touches them emotionally to get them to do that,
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, one of the things that you and I had talked about before this call was some of the experience that I had out in the field doing B2B marketing too. We spent a lot of time figuring out the right incentive, things that were appropriate statewide, what's acceptable, and then also things that would actually drive the patient. So I know you have experience with that as well.
But yeah, why don't you expand on that, Lorie? Why don't you let's talk about that for a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think we've seen over the years, in fact, when I started marketing, oh my gosh, teeth whitening was so popular. It still is, but it's so widely available now that, it's almost like do you have a teeth whitening bundle? Do you have, you can
Right.
do a toothbrush and and a gift card, or what does that look like in order to move the patient to moving forward with either coming in as a new patient and or getting some treatment completed. So the great thing about this is I think the best marker for your team and what would work best to your practice is a lot of times exactly a team approach. So in your morning huddle, talking about, here's some incentive ideas we've been talking about. We have 2 goals for the holiday season. We want to get in X number of new patients, and we want to, reactivate some people, and we want to move the needle on some incompleted treatment.
Right.
So if I were to do that, I would definitely poll my team, get an idea of what they like, what's going on that's current. We kind of live in our bubble right now, literally, because we're so focused on, I don't know about you, Mark, not to change the subject, but I went to the dentist a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
And I love my dental office, big practice here in Spokane, Washington. And they were so professional, but every single step now felt so purposeful, and changing this, instrument to that instrument and handing it to I couldn't believe all the steps that were added. So stepping back from that and saying, let's have fun. Let's talk about what people what might move them to take that next step to come back into the practice and to get some of that work done. So, you and I have discussed everything from, we talked about electronic toothbrushes to package deals. But I have one little thing I'd love to share with you if you don't mind, and it doesn't happen in the office. Are you okay with that?
Yeah, bring it on. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So I call it coffee marketing, and I used to do this all the time, and I've been really thinking about this a lot lately because I was trying to figure out in the world of COVID, how would this work right now, timely. So depending on the size of your community. So let's say you have a decent sized community with, businesses, and, it's not 20 miles to each business in between, more of a rural area with, hometown coffee shops and that kind of thing. And all of us really have that. I mean, if I drive 5 minutes from my house, there is, of course, we're in the Pacific Northwest, there's coffee shops everywhere, and drive through, which is awesome. So we know that in our little designated area of demographic and psychographic that we have people that drink coffee, tea, whatever. Mm-hmm. So I used to go and take my doctors an early morning, and this is not probably plausible today, but hopefully soon, someday it will be. And we would go kind of basically rent out the coffee shop. So there's tons of mom and pop coffee shops out there. We would work a deal with them, and we would go in, and sometimes dressed in, lab coats, and make sure they knew who we were. Right. And we would do complimentary coffee for like 2 hours.
Oh.
And I was thinking about this, and I was like, if you think about the investment and the things that we're investing our money in today, and if you want to make a good impression in your community, yes, you can do giveaways. That's a given. We all can do that, and you can work with your teams to determine what that looks like. But what about working with, let's say, like we have Dutch Brothers, or we have like Coffee Bean down the street. So what if you worked with like Coffee Bean, and you said, I actually want to hand you my credit card, and I want to pay for every coffee that goes through for the next hour, or the next 2 hours. The only thing that I would ask of you is your coffee is complimentary today from Joe Smith's dental practice.
Right.
I'm telling you, give person their first coffee fix for the morning.
Yep.
They hear your name. If they let you come in, even if you stand off to the side with a mask and wave, you are still making a connection.
Oh, absolutely.
So the extreme there is that we do live in an environment where it's challenging to be out with people. I understand that. But as humans, we need to see people and to know that they care about us. So that's my one biggie for this year. If I was a dentist and I was going to invest in some kind of marketing this year, I would make sure that I did something really different like that. And we would finish, and maybe it would be $200 or $300.
Yeah,
that is nothing compared to gaining a new patient.
Right.
So I don't know how you feel about that, but I actually really like things like that, because I think that we can create in-office incentives all day long, but the combination of community, connection, and people actually making I want to say a tangible reference between something that made them feel good and your practice.
Yeah. And that is, you mentioned energy of the practice, it's really, how do you make your patients feel when they're there with you, and
Yep.
it's so much, the patient experience is so critical. But I loved, there's a couple of things that I wrote down in what you just said, Lorie. The one is pulling your team, and I love that recommendation, because you need to get your team on board. Like, your team has to be on the same page with you. Otherwise, it's not going to go anywhere. You could be like, okay, this is our incentive for the day. We're going to offer this. And they're like, oh, I don't like that. And they're not going to do anything about it. They're not going to talk about it. They won't be excited if they do. And so it's not going to have the results that you're hoping for unless you get their buy-in. The second thing is that I love, that idea with the coffee shop, because it's community and it's collaboration, and so now you have the goodwill from the coffee shop, because they're like, oh, that's just so cool that you do this, and then obviously everyone that's coming in or their customers. But there's so many opportunities like that nowadays, collaborate. You see this all the time too, you see this in the music industry, where one artist teams up with another artist and they reach both of their audiences that they probably wouldn't do that. They wouldn't be able to do that on their own. But you saw this in the Super Bowl and the advertising, like their companies were doing this, and you see this all the time, obviously on social media, but that's a tremendous way to gain access to new audiences, to build goodwill, and to deliver that type of feel good experience that you're talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, creative mind, there's always going to be a creative in a practice. There's always going to be somebody who does arts and crafts, or is a musician. There's always someone, and really leaning on your team to harness their strengths and determine where you guys have some opportunities. Like, one of the things that I wrote down in my notes for you and I to talk about a little bit was just simply, people, there's a lot of talk right now on all of our forums about, is everybody going to get together for a holiday party this year? What does that look like? What are we going to do? And I got to thinking, and I remember when I was in practice, and this was quite a while ago, but our specialty practices that counted on us for referrals, would bring a beautiful bouquet of something, or donuts or bagels or this or that. And I'm like, why not do some kind of gift exchange with your specialty practices? If you have practices that you work with within your community, make sure that your internal team is also supported during this time. So let me go one step further with that. We're talking about, making connections with people and that type of thing. At ADOM, the association that I work for, we actually decided that we were going to do like a Secret Santa this year. And we're like, well, our team's going to participate. Maybe we'll get 50, 60 people. Mark, we have hundreds
Oh, cool.
Signed up. And all the instructions is, if you'd like to do Secret Santa, we're going to, here's your $25 gift limit. We're going to give you the address of your person, and you mail a gift across the country. I mean, it's amazing for us. And I think a team internally getting that kind of feeling of doing that with maybe a specialty practice or another practice that they have a doctor-to-doctor connection with or something like that, and the team members all split up. It's one thing to take care of yourselves. I mean, think of it this way. They've all kind of been in the war zone together, right? Everybody's battle fatigued, and we're just kind of getting started with the winter months. So we all really need to be supportive, because the patients are going to feed off of that. So I think the other component in our discussion today that we didn't really talk about, but I think is kind of coming to light in this, is that we have to also fuel each other. So the energy of that, helps to fuel the patient. So if we're tired, they're going to be tired. And what's going to happen? They're not going to want to come in. So
that's a good point.
So I'm not trying to forecast, not a, jingle all the way holiday. What I'm saying is pay attention to not only the tangible and tactical things that you can do in your marketing, but really the feeling that it gives. I mean, the holidays are all about feeling. So, not to get too fluffy, but at the end of the day, you have to, like you said, you have to give people that experience or they're not going to want to come in. So whether you can get that experience through a cup of coffee or, an internal practice that you use or the image that you put on social, it should all be congruent. It should all feel like we're getting there, we're doing it, we're keeping you safe, we're happy, and we want you to join us, and we want you to be here with us.
Yeah, I love that. I love, because when you partner together, whether that's internally as a team or whether it's with another referral partner, it's a restorative feeling that you get, because like you said, we can get worn down, we can get a little just exhausted, fatigued, all the above. But when you come together and you're both serving someone else side by side, you see this all the time in a neighborhood where a neighbor needs a hand and there's several neighbors that come together. And at first you might be like, I've got so many other things to do. But once you get there and you get your hands dirty, when you leave there, you're like, cloud nine, because you're feeling so good, and that's what this can be for your practice. I mean, it could be for your practice, it could be with those relationships, like you mentioned. And I would even suggest, if it's appropriate, to get your patients involved, so we did this with one of my clients before, working a couple different clients actually with Make-A-Wish Foundation, and got the patients involved as well. And it was so neat to see their contributions, because we did this. It was a proclamation party where you announce, it's a party for the child where their wish is announced that it will be granted, basically, where Make-A-Wish says, hey, we're going to grant you this wish. But you're in charge of putting that party on. And it was so cool. One of them, I remember there's a couple of them that were just awesome, but one of them in particular was the child is a huge Harry Potter fan. And so we had these patients, and this patient is like a master baker. She won Cupcake Wars.
Wow.
Yeah. And she put together these cupcakes that were, kid you not, were just incredible. Like they should have been framed in a glass case somewhere. Like they're so cool. So they had these sorting hats on top, if you're familiar with Harry Potter. And then the sorting hat is what decides which team you're not team, but which house you're in.
House you're in, yep.
Yeah, exactly. And so when you take a bite into the cupcake, it would reveal the color and the house that you were in. And so it was just so cool. But then they had, another patient's daughter had put together this whole Harry Potter dance, and she came and actually performed it herself in front of this family. And just, there were so many things like that, whether it's decorations or additional gifts and support. And it was just so neat to see everyone come together, and the feeling that you get from that, not only in the moment and after, but as you look back too, with pictures and images, that feeling remains, those are the things that continue on, besides just, the immediate reaction. So cool. And I couldn't agree with you more, Lorie. I think that's an excellent opportunity to really build in that feeling that we're talking about. Cool.
Yep. Love it. Love it. Great stuff. It's funny because I think about the experience going into the dental practice now. So, a lot of people have to wait in their car. A lot of people can't go in, but imagine changing that up a little bit over the holidays and maybe putting a shoebox on the counter and it's wrapped. And you basically, when your patient comes in, right before they're seated, say, here's 3 clues. Here's the 3 clues. I want you to think about it while you're having your teeth cleaned. And when you come back out, we're going to let you guess what's in the box. And whatever's in the box, you'll win if you pick it. And, if you get close or whatever, whatever the kind of fun thing is. But right. Imagine also changing up the conversation in the practice. Doing sort of a break state. I would call it in my coaching world. I would say some kind of break state so that the patient comes in, whether they're fearful or it's their first time coming in since COVID started or what that looks like, but breaking the ice a little bit with something that's safe, that's hands off, that you can do verbally, and that the patient can kind of have fun with. And, the assistants can say, hey, are you going to guess what our holiday gift is up front? There's all kinds of things you can run through the practice that, the outcome is, that you actually got to talk about something different and had a conversation that, made sense instead of having to worry about all the layers of PPE that everyone's wearing right now. You know what I'm saying? Something different.
No, I love that. It's such a good change. It's just a change up, I mean, where instead of just saying, okay, here, you got to stay in your car and you got to watch out for this, this, and this. It's now, hey, we're so excited to see you. I've got a challenge for you, and just how that flips their frame of reference so quickly. That's so awesome.
You just started a new business for us, Mark. We could do waiting room like trivia, and we could literally build it around COVID so that while they're sitting and waiting to come in, we're challenging them. I love that.
That is so cool. I love it.
Dental trivia.
And that's the thing. It's what can we do to enrich the lives of our patients, coming back to this idea where, we're building connection, where the patient is the hero of our story. What can we do to make their lives better and to make that experience anytime we're communicating with them, whether it's in person, via text, via email, social media, whatever, what can we do to lift them up, And so, as you were thinking, when someone's in the car, what if you had maybe a normal check-in process, and then you had someone like designated for that day was dressed up like an elf and just like would go out and meet them and do something slightly outrageous, just to like totally change it up,
Yeah, absolutely. I'll tell you, it's really kind of cute story if you don't mind. When I worked for a large DSO in California, and my job was to drive in new patients. I talked a little bit about that the last time we chatted.
Right.
And, again, I don't like that term outside the box, but let me tell you, I was like, I'm like, let's build the box, right? I didn't forget the box, forget jumping out of it. I wanted to build one. So my mom was a professional clown, and I created an outfit for her, and we named her Smiles, and it was the cutest thing. And she would come and twist like full teeth, and not even on a kid's day would do wrist flowers for the ladies. I mean, I have pictures that would blow your mind. I can't even believe you did that. One, we did a ribbon cutting, and people haven't done that type of thing, once we are beyond COVID, and I'm saying that with much enthusiasm someday.
Yeah.
We back to the days of open houses and things like that. I had styrofoam teeth made, and then I put glitter and glue all over them, and I hung them from the ceiling. It was beautiful.
I love it.
Not that we didn't find glitter every place for the last months after that, but boy, we had a good time. And again, little things that make the connection. And I wrote down in my notes before we started that all of your marketing efforts right now should be personal. And so everything that you do should drive back to the personal feeling and connection that you make with the patient. And I think we've discussed a bunch of fun ways to do that, but I think knowing the creativeness of what I've seen in dentistry right now, which, hats off to everyone, because I've been in dentistry 31 years now, and I've never seen such resilience. I mean, we've worked through AIDS, we've worked through H1N1, we've worked through a lot of things, and dentistry is like lockstep. Like everybody's really, everything I see on our message boards, everything I hear from our office managers, and we work with some of the best office managers in the country, their practices are humming in spite of the challenges right now. So, celebrating, and I wrote down this one last thing that I'm seeing on the forum, which, might shake a few doctors in their boots, but we're seeing a lot of people talking about taking at least a half, if not a full extra day before Thanksgiving, as a way to rejuvenate their team and get ready for a big holiday season. So, although we need connection with each other, and it's been great to be able to be back to work, also be cognizant of the small things that you can do for your own internal teams so that they will do big things for you. I think marketing goes both ways. I think we have to market to our patients and take care of their health. I think we also have to market as business owners to our teams, so that they understand why they're working for an unbelievable practice who really cares for their patients. So I think marketing in this frame with the holiday in mind goes both ways. I think we have to do all of that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's so imperative right now. I mean, you don't want to be, if you think of it in the term and from the perspective of a team member, you don't want to be, driven to, driven to the bone, every single day. And then it's even through the holidays, especially after everything that's gone on, and I had this boss once that he literally said this. He's like, why he was trying to understand, okay, what strengths and weaknesses and everything. And he said, well, I just want to know your breaking point. I know what, like, and I thought, what a weird thing to say. I mean, like, I want to know like how far I can push you to before you're going to totally, break fall to pieces, and I'm like, what are you trying to do? It really caught me off guard. I was like, it was a major red flag. I was like, holy cow. And we don't ever want to be perceived like that. I mean, as an employer, as the leader of your office, you don't want to be a slave driver. I mean, you're there. They are your, I loved how you put that. You market to your patients, you market to your team. I mean, they're also, I mentioned the patient's a hero's story. Your team is a hero too. I mean, you have to recognize that. And you can't overwork them. And so, taking that into consideration, it'll be different for every practice, of course, but at least take a minute to think about that and approach that. You might even consider consulting your office manager about that and just getting a good pulse to see what's
even
most
if it's a couple hours or, however you do it, or maybe buy turkeys for everybody. I mean, there's all kinds of really cool things you can do. And my term for that has always been internal customer. I mean, even people within the ADOM team, I look at my team members as my internal customer. I'm trying to make sure that they're just as happy as my customers are, because then everything is flowing. Everything moves. There's not a stopgap anywhere. So you can have all the great marketing campaigns in the world, but you and I both know if your team's not on board, like you said, it kind of gets stuck. It kind of bogs down. So you really want to make sure, especially at the holiday time, that you're recognizing internal and external, in my opinion.
Absolutely. Oh, man. Well, we could go on forever. Is there any last thing? Because I know we're kind of coming up against the time. Any last comments you wanted to make, Lorie? Any last points that you'd make for the holiday season that we didn't cover yet?
You started out with, the days when, you dress up Santa and people come in and take pictures and stuff like that.
Right.
I think there's still a way to do those kind of things. I think you still can have somebody dress up like Santa.
Yes.
Just change it. And maybe you basically take pictures of Santa and write down a patient's, first name or something on a board that they hold and say, you're our secret Santa patient, and so we have a gift for you. Come on by, and then post that on social. I mean, careful with your HIPAA stuff, but at the end of the day, do things that you can do.
Yeah.
Don't scrap the stuff that worked for you before because you can't figure out how to COVIDize it.
Right.
Is that a word? I think it might be. Who knows?
It is now a word. Absolutely.
So you know what I'm saying? So what I'm saying is, don't throw away things that worked for you in the past. I'll just share this one last thing with you, and I'll never forget this. So my doctor that I worked for, he had a dentist who had a fake tree that they put up every year. And back in, 20 years ago when I was in the practice, a fake tree back then that had been around 20 years looked like a really old tree. Yeah. And I told him, I said, I think it would smell so much better in here. It would look so good if we had a tree. People have allergies and things like that, so you gotta have to be careful. But I'll never forget, I walked down to the corner and there was a Christmas tree lot. And I picked out a Christmas tree and I drug it back like Charlie Brown. It wasn't big. It was enough for me. I could carry it. It was small. But I got it back. And with the gift of that tree, they gave a wooden cedar heart ornament. And when I left the practice, my doctor let me take that wooden cedar heart.
Yeah.
And I've had it on my tree every year since then. So my point to that is, you don't know in your day-to-day experience with your patients and or your team what they're taking out of that and what they're going to carry with them the rest of their lives. So I would just, as kind of a closing thought for me would be to make memories this year. Do things that are fun, and really challenge yourself to not do what you normally do, to think about your patients and team as the gifts that they have been this year, your team for working so hard, and patience for overcoming challenges, fear, all of the things we've had to deal with COVID, and then really celebrating the fact that you're together, that somehow they found their way to you as their dentist. So I would just ask you to keep that in your heart and mind when you're moving through the holiday season.
I love that. I couldn't have said it any better. That's such a great way to end, with capping that with that thought and keeping that front and center as you go forward. I love that.
Absolutely.
I love that. Well, thank you so much, Lorie. Is last of all, I want people to know how can they get in touch with you? How can they learn more about ADOM if they're interested in that? How can they do that?
Absolutely. So the American Association of Dental Office Management is the only association for dental office managers in the country. We have over 10,000 of the best managers connecting and utilizing our resources. It's a very small investment. In fact, about a cup of coffee a month, really. If you got a cup of coffee,
we were talking about it.
That's about it. So it's dentalmanagers.com. That is the website that you can go to with all of our resources. We have 70 chapters around the country. There might be one near you. You would have access to people with crazy coffee ideas like me and all the rest of the great ADOM team, and thousands of office managers across the country that you can bounce ideas off. So the whole concept with ADOM is you're no longer on an island. You can ask questions to your peers, people who are doing the same exact things that you're doing, and you don't have to be worried. In our virtual environment, this is a connection that is pretty life-changing. So we would love to have people come and take a test drive and check us out.
That is awesome. Awesome.
Cool.
So dentalmanagers.com. We'll put that up in the show notes as well. But thank you so much, Lorie, for taking the time. And as always, your experience and your ideas are just the best. So
and
really appreciate it.
Happy holidays to everyone.
Yes. Happy holidays to you as well. We'll be sure to have you back here soon.
Sounds good.
Hey, thanks, Lorie.
Did you enjoy this episode of the Dental Marketing Secrets Podcast? Head on over to iTunes to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. And for more proven marketing strategies to grow your practice, visit practicerocket.net.